All right, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Astroimaging channel. This is Alex, and we're together with Tim and Wanda and Derek and Eric and Arno, and who else would it be? We got somebody else in the room. I've forgotten. Wanda. Anyway, we're all here, and we're about to give another presentation on the Astroimaging channel, and this one will be technically perfect, even if the MC is a little discombobulated. That's because for the last 45 minutes, we've been sitting here trying to discuss just how it is that we are going to upgrade our software in such a way that we don't ever have a streaming mistake again. Wish us. I'm going to share my screen here because I want to tell you about what we're doing on the Astroimaging channel in the upcoming weeks. Tonight, oops. There we go. Here's our website, and you get there by going to the astroimagingchannel.org, and you go to the calendar to find out what's coming up in the near future. And Derek's here tonight. Derek's been very helpful in our discussion of software because he's pitched in. And that's just the spirit of the Astroimaging channel, where everybody's just kind of pitching in. So we appreciate that, Derek. Adam's going to be here next week. Adam is all excited because there's some new stuff in PixInsight, and he just has to tell us. So he got a hold of us and kind of made some arrangements so that he could be here as soon as possible to tell us what's happening with the new normalized scale gradient in PixInsight. Glenn Diekman's coming the week after that, and he's one of 3 or 4 presentations we've got coming up in the next few months about imaging from suburbs. He's got some techniques that he uses to get some really beautiful pictures from his home in suburban Southern California. And so we've got some other shows coming up. And if you look for more, October 31st, that's not up yet. October 31st, you will find out that we are going to take, there it is, October 31st. Happy Halloween. We aren't going to be here. And then we've got a couple more coming up after that. And then we're scheduled all the way up until November, but we still need people. If you want to work with the Astroimaging channel and tell us a little something, you can hit the contact button and you can tell us your name, give us your email, and tell us what you want to talk about. I want to tell you about something that happened to me recently. I'm always on the lookout for people to come speak. As you know, I'm always emphasizing that with you. Well, I saw some pretty good YouTube tutorials, and I said, hey, let's see if we can get that guy to come on over to the Astroimaging channel. And I invited him, and he says, he gave me a reason that a lot of people have given me at one point or another, that he's a little shy about doing things out, coming here and acting like he knows what he's doing and he's all that in imaging, and that he can do stuff live, and hey, okay, I understand that. I think everybody understands it. Everybody gets a little stage fright now and then, and it does take some kind of what's called creative conceit to think that you can actually sit here and tell people stuff. But deep down inside, you know what? We are all in the same boat. We're all a club. I am sure right now, although I can't get to it right now because of the way I'm sharing my screen, that there are people over there saying, hey, how's the weather going where you are? And how's the weather going where you are? And, oh, I tried a new camera today, and all this other stuff that you guys talk about, in addition to whatever is happening in the actual presentation. That's because this is your little clubhouse. Okay, particularly during the pandemic, you can come on over here and you can visit with us, and you can have a grand old time talking about all your astroimaging things and stuff like that. And we'll get 40, 50, 60 of you. And then tomorrow there'll be another 100 or so of you. And by the end of the week, 1,000 people will have watched the show. Sure, but they're all your friends. I mean, it's okay to come on over here and show your friends what you've been doing. And you can do this. So please, do a little something for the Astroimaging channel. Become a presenter by hitting the contact button. There's also we're starting to get, Arno can tell you, that we're starting to get various pictures of beautiful nebulae. So that's our next effort. We've had a lot of good videos in the past, 3 of them so far that we've produced. This is your work, and we'll show your work and put them together in a nice little video show. All you got to do is click here to submit the file, and it'll go to your email, and you send us a substantially sized JPEG or PNG, and it has to be in by October 31st. It has to be in by Halloween so we can get it all together. We have another program going that we're calling workshops. And workshops are where we give you a set of data. This is Eric Cole's M33 data, and you get to process the data. And after you process the data, you send it to us, again, 1080 pixels, big enough to fill the screen, basically. And to do that, you go to the data file, see this link to the data files. And if you go there, you're going to find a whole set of data to process, to practice with, and then send it in to us by clicking here to submit the file. Okay, I got lots of other things I could tell you about, but that's enough of me. Let's, Derek, you work over there. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and you can start sharing yours. And Derek comes to us to tell us a little bit about how to use astro images in education. Derek, tell us about yourself and what you want to talk about. Okay.
All right. Yeah. So thank you so much, Alex, and thank you to everybody else with the astro imaging channel here. And my presentation is going to be a little bit less technical than what I've seen in the past. I actually do enjoy watching the videos on the channel. It's a lot of great stuff that people share, and of course, love to continue seeing that in the future. But what I wanted to do today is, first, I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen here, so that way we can enjoy what I'll talk a little bit more about what I do in a second here. But basically what I wanted to talk about today is a little bit about using my profession and my interest in astrophotography to really help motivate people and to inspire people to think beyond just their normal lives, to look up and feel inspired by the wonders of our universe. And of course, you know, everybody who's watching tonight has probably had that moment in their time that they've just been inspired and excited about looking up. Maybe you were starting as a visual astronomer, or somebody, you know, you're big into photography and you wanted to dive into astrophotography. There's always that something that sparked your interest. And as an educator, as somebody who goes out and talks to people, students, the general public, I wanted to empower and inspire people by using one of the things that I enjoy doing the most, and that is astrophotography. And this here is one of my images of the M81 and M82 area. So a little bit about my background. So I run a planetarium. I'm a planetarium director at the Emil Buehler Perpetual Trust Planetarium. Try saying that 5 times fast. But we have a really nice planetarium located just north of Orlando, Florida. So it's a smaller planetarium. We're only about 30 foot in diameter. But as somebody who has worked in larger planetariums, this is, I love being able to work in a small planetarium because you get this real nice intimacy that you don't get with a larger planetarium. You get a chance to interact with your audience. All the shows that we do are live, interactive. And it's just really nice to see everybody, to look at everybody, you know, because I usually introduce myself at the beginning of the program and people get to know and get to learn from me. And it's just a fantastic feeling to be able to really feel like you're talking to your audience. And so I really enjoy doing this. We also do a lot of telescope events. We bring out telescopes. I actually do a lot of live stacking on the fly telescope sidewalk events where I set up my telescope with my CCD camera and show people live stacking images of things that, you know, they would otherwise not see because of light pollution and things like that. I also go out to libraries and schools, and I teach classes at the college. I teach classes of, we do both virtual and in-person field trips. We've been doing virtual for the past year, obviously, a couple of years. So I get a chance to really interact with people from all different kinds of backgrounds, diverse backgrounds, you know, so it's really, really, really refreshing to be able to be around people and to share my passion in astronomy. But, you know, the other thing is that, you know, for the longest time, when I first started working at the planetarium and I started teaching, you know, I see a lot of planetarium people. I see a lot of people in astronomy organizations like societies and things like that. And, you know, you see their outreach programs, and they use a lot of a lot of Hubble pictures. And, you know, I don't want to discredit NASA's work. That's not the point of this. But I also know that, especially in our local astronomy club here in Central Florida, the Central Florida Astronomical Society, we have a tremendous talent of astrophotographers. And many of those that go out and do outreaches for local, you know, places, whether it be schools or, you know, just astronomy nights and things like that, I don't see a lot of these people using their own shots. I'm sure all of us have taken images of the Orion Nebula and images even of the Eagle Nebula and the quintessential pillars of creation. And, you know, for the longest time, I was using a lot of these pictures and trying to ask permission from others to use my pictures and things like that. And, well, I want to talk a little about some of my background when it comes to the introduction to astrophotography. What got me into astrophotography? Well, I was always into photography for many years. But one day I was invited to attend a star party at the Pisgah Astronomical Research Institute over in North Carolina. If you haven't been there, it's actually a really cool thing. It's a big radio telescope that they primarily use now for outreach and education, but they used to hold these star parties. And one of the individuals that was there, this was kind of, I think it was like 2009, was taking pictures using a standard DSLR camera. Well, I had a DSLR camera, and he said, "Hey, do you mind?" Or I said, "Hey, do you mind if I just take a quick shot using your telescope?" And he said, "Sure." So he let me use his T-mount, and I hooked it up to the telescope. And this was my very first picture of the Orion Nebula. And unfortunately, it wasn't a crystal clear night. There was a lot of moisture in the atmosphere. You can see if you look at the stars there, you can see that there's a lot of moisture in the atmosphere. But I got to tell you, taking that first picture, I'm sure everybody here today, or who's watching, or maybe watching in the future, has had that moment where you see your very first image for the first time ever. I was floored seeing the trapezium and the nebula and all that. And then I shared that image, and people were floored. They were going, "Oh my gosh, look at this thing." Of course, I adopted using social media at the beginning, using Facebook and things like that. And people were just absolutely astonished by this picture. And what I noticed compared to documentary from Hubble and NASA and stuff like that is my engagement went through the roof. People were asking me tons more questions about, how did you take that picture? And what am I seeing? And all these different questions that I didn't get when I just shared a cool picture of the Orion Nebula with from NASA. And that really got me thinking, well, wait a minute. People are really enjoying this. And I decided that, I was just floored by taking this image. And of course, having this first picture, of course, everybody has had this once in their time as an astrophotographer. You just get you get hooked. You're just immediately obsessed with this, and you want to do better. You want to go crazy, things like that. And from this moment, I realized, this was cool, and I was getting a lot of engagement. But then a few months later, I got a chance to attend a conference called Live Design Innovation. And they actually meet in Las Vegas now, but at the time, they would meet in Orlando. And I actually attended a course called Master Projection course. So again, my background in the planetarium, I'm also in the technical aspects of the planetarium, using digital mapping and stuff in the planetarium dome and things like that. And so I attended this course on how to do what's called projection design, which essentially is projection mapping on three-dimensional objects and things like that, using 3D renderings that you can kind of model along 3D objects in real time. And one of the things that really stuck out with this presentation that I heard was that the fact that, a lot of us use stock imagery. We spend a lot of money on stock imagery and stuff like that, and we have talent that can go out and take photos or create things. Use as much of your own stuff as possible. And well, I went back and thought about that time I posted that Orion Nebula picture, my very first astrophotograph, and it made me think, well, you know, I always show all these pictures of Hubble and NASA and things like that in the planetarium. Maybe I can now use astrophotography as a way to teach people in the planetarium, and of course into my other outreaches and things like that. And I realized that since then, and I want to kind of give you kind of results now, my engagement when I show my own images is far more reaching than just showing pictures that somebody sees in a textbook and things like that. People knowing that you were out there taking that image, or you're at your observatory, or whatever the case may be, you producing that image just connects with your audience so much more than just sharing a just standard, ordinary space picture. And that became my mission as an astrophotographer. You know, lots of us who do astrophotography, and this is great too, just do it for your own interest and all that. But I decided from that day that when I do astrophotography, I have a purpose. And through my experience over the last 10 plus years, I've noticed that astrophotography, doing it and sharing with people, has been a huge bonus and an advantage to presenting knowledge about the universe that I'd never thought of. So this is a picture of me actually showing off one of my Astro Image Planetarium dome. And again, being able to show that and using my talents and that conference I just attended, warping that image on the dome, giving this sense of feeling that you're actually in space. And when people are like, wow, that's a great picture. Was that taken by NASA? And you're like, no, that was taken by me in a field out in a dark sky observing area. People their interest just catapults. And again, the gist of what I'm going to talk about later is how you can utilize your astrophotographs and how we can take astrophotographs in a way that really conveys the knowledge of being able to educate people, being able to provide something to people that they may not have thought of. And again, maybe if you're part of an astronomical society in your local area, how you can use your astrophotographs to really empower people in your community. Or maybe you don't want to do that, you just like taking pretty pictures, and you might be able to provide that imagery to those that like to do those things, people who are part of an outreach initiative for an astronomical organization or a museum or anything like that. So let me I'll talk a little bit about my technical stuff, some of the things that I use. This was actually my very first astrophotography rig. I started off with a Atlas EQD mount, and I used a William Optics GTF 81. It's actually a telescope I still use today, and I love that telescope. It just has that right image scale, just field of view. I really love taking wide field pictures because you get a lot of storytelling with it. I have just a standard 50 millimeter auto guiding guide scope. This was with an Orion star shoot. And I started off with just this one's a little bit more modern picture, but the camera I was using at the time was just a 5D Mark II. But eventually I had that modified, as many of us do. If we start off with DSLR astrophotography, we start with just a normal DSLR, and then of course we graduate into a modified DSLR where we can capture a full spectrum of information. So that's kind of my thing. And of course, I still, to this day, I don't have a trailer. I don't have an RV that I camp in. I'm not going to lie, I enjoy the camping, quote unquote, aspect. And I'm going to enjoy that. Eventually, I'm going to get an RV or a trailer or something, but I still enjoy the fact of camping and all that. That's kind of my getaway thing. This is actually at the Chiefland Astronomy Village. If you're ever in Florida, this is a fantastic place. You can actually become a member of this area, and you can enjoy our skies here in Florida in the wintertime. Predominantly, wintertime is the best time, but you can use it all year long. So this was kind of my first setup that I used. And eventually, I decided to graduate. Now I use a Mighty mount. I really like my Mighty. I mean, it's amazing. I also have a 190 millimeter Mac Newtonian that I really enjoy. Again, I like that wide field aspect. I really enjoy doing wide field astrophotography. And the camera that's actually attached to this, I have several cameras now. the problem with Florida, and for those that live on the East Coast, understand that, Florida, we have times where it's really, really, really clear a lot of time, but then there are times where you only have maybe one night of the entire new moon or time when you can actually observe. So I do use a 6D that's been modified and cooled by Hugh-Tech. Hugh-Tech, this is their cooled 6D camera. It's modified, full spectrum. I really love this camera. Actually, most of the images you're going to see tonight that are deep space images have been taken with this camera. But I also have a Attic 16200 full frame CCD camera with a Attic 7 channel LRGB and narrowband filters that I use for when I have extended periods of time of clear skies. I also do narrowband imaging as well here in my backyard, especially when I can't get out to a dark sky location. And our hope is that we're eventually going to have an observatory installed at our college campus where I can do some more work there. But I really enjoy this. It's a fantastic setup, and this is predominantly what I use now for my deep space astrophotography. But the other thing is I really also enjoy doing nightscape photography. So I still have my original AstroTrack mount. This is the one that came out the first generation. And I'm not going to lie, I'm a little biased towards the first generation. I think when it comes to AstroTrack, I think I like this one better because it's skinnier. I actually put this in a Camelback insert for my hiking bag because I like to hike out to some remote areas and take pictures and things like that. But honestly, it's just one of those sky trackers. There's many different versions now. At the time when I purchased this, this was pretty much the only one available. But I still use it, and I enjoy. This is actually me doing a nightscape photography workshop for Great Basin National Park back in 2016, I think. That's kind of my setup I have there for doing wide field nightscape photography as well. So I like to dabble in lots of different astrophotography because, again, my motivation for astrophotography is using it as an educational tool to, again, get people excited about astronomy. So let's say, okay, so now that we have a little bit of background of what I do and, all that, and a little bit about, kind of the idea that I provide, I like to do education. One of the things that I first ask a lot of people, and I see this a lot with a lot of astrophotographers, and I follow a lot of astrophotographers on Instagram, on various 500 pics, all various different astro bin, all this different stuff. And what I notice with a lot of astrophotographers is they take nice pictures, but there's really not a lot of context to it. And I like to equate this based on people I've know personally, like my family members and stuff. When I show them my astrophotographs, a lot of times they're like, what am I looking at? It's cool, but what am I looking at? And a lot of times I see that a lot of astrophotographers get really involved in the technical aspect, but really don't take time to look at the aspect of what is it that you're actually imaging. And, as a photographer, we like to set the scene. We like to tell a story. Ansel Adams would always say that in his works, for years, is what is the story? What's the story that's conveyed in the photograph? And the same thing can be applied to astrophotography. If you're using astrophotography for educational purposes, what's the story that is conveying in the picture? So I want to try to make this a little bit more engaging. I know that we have a little bit or interactive, not engaging, but interactive. So I know that we have a little bit of delay in response, but what I'm going to do here, and I don't mind if any of our admins here on the channel would like to interrupt me, they're more than welcome to do that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up some images. And what I like to do is, if you don't have to engage, but while you're watching, I want you to think about some of these things. When you see these compositions, what is the story that you're seeing in the image? And what are some of the things that you can bring up? So if you're watching live right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up a series of images. And I want everybody to kind of just sit down and, think about, what are you seeing? What is the story behind the picture? So I'm going to go ahead and bring up probably one of the most quintessential galaxies in the sky. Generally, and a lot of astrophotographers, this is one of their one of their first introductions to galaxy astrophotography. So, usually we don't dive into doing very small galaxies, but this is a great one. So think about, what are some of the things that when you look at this image, what's the story that's being conveyed here? And it sounds like we have a microphone. Yes.
Eric, hi, this is Alex. Do you want people to make suggestions over in the comments on YouTube as to what they wish, what they're thinking about? What they think their story is? Yeah. So if you folks could go over to the YouTube comment section and make a comment what you think is happening there. Okay. And
I did turn on the low latency mode tonight, so I think we only have about a 5-second delay as opposed to our usual 20 seconds, so it shouldn't be as bad.
Okay, so
fantastic.
Let's give it some time here, okay, Derek?
Absolutely, yeah. And while we're kind of building up some responses here, let me go into kind of what I would look at when I see this image. So there have been times I've been on the field with astrophotographers and I see a picture like this and I ask them, hey, what do you see that over there? And I'm like, I don't really know what I'm looking at. I just think it looks cool. And I would say, what are some of the things that interest you in this? And so, for example, what I see with this frame is I see, first off, there's this massive galaxy. So you think of scale. Maybe you can think about, well, why is this so big in the field of view? Perhaps it's a closer galaxy to us. Maybe you want to get into the historical aspect of how Hubble used the galaxy to figure out the expansion of the universe, or maybe even delve into hidden astronomers like Henrietta Leavitt that used the Andromeda galaxy to look for Cepheid, these variable stars that helped us calculating the distance of faraway stars. There's just so many very different stories that you can dive into just this one picture in astrophotograph. So when you take your astrophotograph, you can tell many different kinds of stories by just one single image. I mean, you can post this picture 100 times and tell a wholly different story. And of course, the best part of it is the fact that you took that picture. That is your copyright. That's your intellectual property, and you can create any way for how it is. So, do you have any suggestions or anything yet in the comments?
Well, we have had a few comments over there. Let me see. Yes, my mic's live. I started off with, I think it's a story of urbanization in the suburbs. And Linda says it's death by galaxy. And,
yes.
And Tim says this is a great show. And I agree that the Andromeda Galaxy is a great show, but I think he's commenting on you, Derek. And same thing for Ghost Tour Keller. Same thing. Molly, you go ahead. The next comment is yours.
So what I said was, and I think a couple people also mentioned this. I love telling the story. The story that you said, where how we used the Andromeda Galaxy to figure out what the distance to this spiral nebula was, and I love telling the story because I don't think that people realize that it was up until very recently that we thought that the whole universe was just the Milky Way. And learning that the Andromeda Galaxy is way farther away than we thought it was really grew the size of the universe by many orders of magnitude in one day.
It's easier to talk than to type, huh, Molly? I'd like to tell people, Linda says, I like to tell people that the light they are seeing when doing live outreaches, she says, started on its journey before the first human was even around. And John Pancoast, the closest major galaxy to the Milky Way, a grand design spiral shape, just like our own, but bigger. And that light started 2 million years ago. And John continues, you can see that with your own eye from a really dark space. So there's lots of stories people tell about it.
Oh, absolutely. And I love it. I love the fact that this is inspiring people to tell these things. And I love the fact that, again, you are taking this image. You now can create this inspirational story that you can, again, connect people from all kinds of things that could get people excited. Let's take a look at another one here. This is a little bit different, but I think this picture, you know, can really tell a closer story. Of course, we talked about the Andromeda Galaxy being this distant object and connecting it with our known idea of the universe. But here we have something that people see all the time, the moon, right? But we, you know, here in Florida, we're so close to Kennedy Space Center. And, you know, when we do these transit, I see a lot of people do transit photos where they stack a 10 or 12 of these International Space Station pictures on the moon. I actually went away. I thought to myself, I'm like, I wanted to do a picture where it was just a single moment in time to tell the story of just the fact that you have these two objects that we see in the sky and connect the story of the fact that there are humans on this machine here. And you actually, at the very tip of the International Space Station, you can actually see that's the Crew 1 capsule. This was actually taken during when Crew 1 was up. But, you know, the speed of the International Space Station, 5 miles a second. Again, creating this story. What's the story of the picture? You know, we can create it, you know, when we're processing our images, we can do things in a way, we can crop and we can create composition that can really captivate the story, you know, have fun with it. And like we heard with our comments earlier, there are so many amazing stories that can be told by simply your astrophotographs. And that might even inspire you to do stuff that you might not even thought about taking pictures of. You know, again, you know, for the longest time I thought, oh, I'm not going to do International Space Station stuff. But then I realized I can do stuff where I can talk about, you know, the International Space Station and then the Sea of Tranquility next to it and how that was the first place humans set foot on the moon. And there's just so many different various stories that we can talk about. And then what I'm going to do here is we're going to go back to the interactive part on the next one, because this is something that all of us are getting excited about in a few more years. Some of us have a little bit more opportunity to go to see this annually or biannually. But of course, the 2017 solar eclipse was the you know, one of the most, you know, awe-inspiring events to witness. And this is an image that I took during that moment. And of course, this is a you know, composite of multiple different images. But you know, surprisingly, when I show this picture to people, most of the time they don't really know what it is. Surprisingly, most people get a little confused of what's going on here. But you know, think about when you're telling a story, what are some of the things that you could tell a story to in regards to a solar eclipse? Like you know, you could the moon in front, and you know, a lot of people don't necessarily know the difference between a solar and a lunar eclipse, and this could be a great way to kind of, you know, demonstrate and differentiate those two. But, you know, people always wonder what those little red things are on the side and things like that. So we'll give a few moments here for people to chime in. Again, I love to make things interactive. That's just my planetariumness to it. I don't like to just speak all the time. I'm an teacher, so I like to hear from people. But, you know, what are some ways that we can tell a story when it comes to solar eclipse, and how we can maybe even use our photographs to inspire people to get out there and go and see this thing that's going to happen in 2024, April 8th, 2024, to get out there again and witness this event. So do we have anything coming in yet from the comments?
Molly, why don't you take it?
Sure. Since nobody else has commented yet for this one, I have a one like this as well, and I like to talk about the magnetic field lines and what the corona is, these superheated particles, and how we don't yet know why the corona is so much hotter than the surface. That's still an active area of investigation, because I think a lot of people think that we've got all this stuff figured out, and we don't.
Absolutely, it's one of the most mysterious things about the sun. Absolutely.
And I like to show a comparison between the image from 2017, and I got to go to Chile in 2019 and show how the magnetic field looked different between the two, and how that corresponds with the solar cycle and stuff like that.
Fantastic. So again, see, here you go. You got all these different ways to just that one picture that you took can now become a platform to really get people to really see it. Because, you know, for me as somebody who teaches a lot, so you could be surprised how much information many individuals are unaware of, that don't know a lot of these things. And you know, we take it for granted, our knowledge of the night sky and astronomy. But again, these powerful images that you created, that human connection, can really engage people in a way that you know, they can look on NASA's website and see a picture of a eclipse, but if you actually showed them something that you witnessed, you can tell that story, you can convey that thing. And I think that can go a lot farther when it you know, besides just showing a picture of space. But here's something that that even I'm guilty of as well. And everybody's been guilty of this, because we get excited, and a lot of times, again, we know it so well that we forget that we talk a lot about technical jargon. And what I wanted to do now is to create something in your mind when creating your images. We actually did a very fantastic workshop one time called Explain to Me Like I'm 5. Basically, how do we take very, very complicated scientific ideas or theories or laws or whatever the case may be, and try to convert it to something even a 5-year-old could understand. And, you know, some of the things that we astrophotographers love to talk about, we love to talk about technical stuff. You know, I used a hydrogen alpha filter. I created this much. I integrated this many subframes. I used narrowband filters. This is an LRGB, you know, image. These are O-type stars. This thing is so many light years away. This is the Mission Nebula. And we start, you know, when it comes to educating the general public about your images, you know, we have to think about, what do these words really mean? And so what I want to do next is, and this one we don't have to make it very interactive if you don't want, but I want to just, at least for those that are watching, to think about, when you see these next images, to imagine, you know, how can I convey this information without getting into too much technical jargon? You know, for example, if I see an image with a lot of red in it, you know, you immediately think there's a lot of hydrogen alpha or hydrogen beta, or there's something in regards to hydrogen in the image. But how can you try to convey that without getting into too much technical jargon? For example, let's go back to one of the most famous areas of the night sky. I'm going to tell you, here in Florida, 9 out of 10 times when I go to the Chiefland Astronomy Village to do my astrophotography work, most people are homed in on the Orion Nebula, whether it be a wide field shot like this, or looking straight at the trapezium, hitting the running man, doing some type of thing regarding this area. People love the Orion Nebula, especially people who are new to the field of astrophotography, like I did when I took the shot of the Orion Nebula. You know, just, you know, what's going on in this picture here? And a lot of those technical terms that I just talked about can be applied. You can say there's a lot of hydrogen alpha here. There's a lot of O-type stars. This is 1,200 or so light years away. But how can we connect those ideas in a way that people may be able to understand more? For example, we could say that the gas that you see here, the red gas, is an area that is made up of this thing called hydrogen. Maybe explain hydrogen a little bit. And maybe, you know, a lot of times when I talk to grade school students, that the trapezium is a place where stars are formed. It's like stellar factory. And just using this image alone can captivate people to know, like, where do stars come from? You know, our sun possibly came from one of these places, came from a place like this a long time ago. So that opens the idea that when we look at this stuff, we're looking at answers and evidence to newborn stars and things like that. But again, this is just one of those examples of, you know, when you look at this image, you can immediately get into, I created all this integration. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, at the very end of, usually when I do a post or I talk about it, if people ask me, I say, yeah, I took this many subframes and I stacked it and stuff like that. You know, you're always going to get those people that really enjoy that stuff, especially people who are astrophotographers. But if you're doing this as a general public kind of thing, you know, when you take these images, you get so excited about teaching all these things, you know, slow it down and really kind of work on conveying that information in a way that is digestible to so many different people. This is one of those other ones that are a little bit more complicated to try to explain to somebody, because when you look at planetary nebulas like the dumbbell here, you start wondering, well, how can I really explain all this without getting into too technical stuff? Well, think about this. You know, one of the things I like to think, one of the things that people brought up earlier is time. And that one of the things that you can bring up is, everything ends, even the sun. And the sun will eventually end. And this is what our sun may look like in several billion years from now. And so you can kind of introduce this idea of how stars die, how stars end their life. And essentially what we're seeing is this bubble of gas. It's expanding out into space. And you're trying to avoid having to use too many terms. But of course, let people approach you. Again, engagement is very, very powerful. Remember, I talked about in the beginning of this talk about how when I used that Orion Nebula picture, that very first one, people started asking me tons and tons and tons and tons of questions. And that led to more exciting things. And that's another thing I wanted to bring up. Keep it mysterious. You don't have to write 6 pages of information, or if you're going out to an outreach, you don't have to give every little facts and data about these targets, but give it enough just to convey a curiosity, just to invoke a curiosity with people. Let them go, well, okay, well, when you said a star dies, how does it work? And then you can start kind of slowly introducing new ideas and demonstrating all this stuff in your image. Plus, I also found, let me go back to the dumbbell here. The very first time I've imaged the dumbbell, I just got, obviously the very bright area. But then I realized I'm like, I want to go deeper with this because I want to look at those tendrils and the H alpha regions and the O2 regions and or O3 regions and all that. And that gave me a chance to get more 3-dimensional shape to it. So it also, in this need to educate more and explain this more to people got me more excited about going deeper, doing longer exposures, being able to do HDR composition and PixInsight to create that nice depth that you see in this image here. So, not only can education be simple to people, but it can be very complicated for you. This could create more of a challenge. Like, how do I create an image that really tells a story, but it can be a challenge for me as an astrophotographer because maybe I never really figured out how to truly get that ultra deep image, ultra deep data without going further and using narrowband. This is actually a mix of narrowband and color image or RGB, LRGB, to get that kind of detail. So again, surprisingly, sometimes if you get somebody asking you a question, that may go, well, wait a minute, I can kind of show that in an image, and that might actually motivate you on a next project to do another astrophotography image. Maybe you're like, I did the dumbbell now, I'm good. But if somebody were to look at your dumbbell image and you're like, well, what happens? And you're like, oh, well, what if I go deeper? What can I learn from this? And some astrophotographers were able to actually, I think it was with the Ring Nebula, discover something brand new about the Ring Nebula that even professional astronomers weren't able to observe. So again, sometimes when people bring up questions to you and you can provide this insight, you never know, it may allow you to become even more experienced astrophotographer. Another thing that I love to do with my astrophotographs too is never be shy about adding labels to them. For example, look at the moon. I see lots and lots and lots of images of people. Oh, my light went off. Hopefully it stays on. There we go. Light went off. Okay, well, it's all right. You don't really need to see me right now that you're looking at the slides here. But here we have the moon. And, when I see moon pictures a lot, I usually just see a blank moon. And 9 out of 10 times I see people go, well, what's that? Oh, what's that? I don't know what I'm looking at here. I see a bunch of holes. But really, in your astrophotographs, don't be shy to add labels to. And also, I got to tell you, I learned a lot about the moon by researching these things. I like, for example, this area where it says the sea that has become known. As somebody who studied this stuff, I still didn't even know that area was called the sea that has become known. Sea of Tranquility, Sea of Serenity, all these things that we hear about. But also you can learn about different craters, different areas. This helped me by creating these labels, learn more about the astrophotographs that I've been taking for years. I mean, I've been taking images of the moon for many, many, many years, but I never really got a chance to do a lot of study. And so a lot of times people go, well, I don't have time to study the moon. Well, maybe use your astrophotography time to take some images and maybe go, oh, I'm going to create an image that includes labels. So not only am I going to learn more about the moon, I'm going to be able to help people learn more about the moon. Plus, also think about this, you know, how many posters of the moon that you see. And there are actually a lot of posters I see in the moon that I wasn't really too happy with. So I wanted to create my own. And so you can also create your own posters and share them with schools and stuff. And now guess what? They have your astrophotograph out there and what you created and all that. And this is fun. Now, of course, with labels, some people say, hey, with labels, you're like, okay, well, I mean, I'm not really good at Photoshop. I'm like, look, if you know how to do PixInsight, you can create labels on your pictures. Don't feel shy, you know, learn, you know, there's plenty of information out there, but it really enhances your images. Even things like this. Again, as I mentioned before, I love wide field astrophotography because you can get so many cool, interesting targets in one single image. But here we have the Orion Nebula, the Horsehead, Flame, M78, and Boogeyman, and of course Barnard's Loop and several other things that are in here. But you know, you can see here how we can kind of zoom in, and I kind of design it in a way that almost looks like different eyepieces are, and it shows you the different fields of view and all that. And so you can get really fun and creative with it. And this is a great way to demonstrate to people, you know, what you're seeing in the sky. Imagine having a picture of Orion and being able to like, you know, demonstrate all these different targets. They can use a sky app for that, but again, why not show something that you've taken and demonstrate as well? Constellations are a great one. As a planetarium person, constellations are a very important thing to my field of view, or my field of work, and I actually use this a lot in my my shows. Again, a lot of even amateur astronomers don't know the sky very much, don't know the stars, and so by going and making a challenge for yourself, and I'm going to take some images of different constellations in the sky and labeling them, that will make you even more knowledgeable, not only as an astrophotographer, but also just knowing and learning the sky. Knowing where like the Veil Nebula is in relationship to the North American Nebula, and of course Gamma Cygni, and all these other areas of the sky that a lot of times we just hit the button and then the telescope moves to. We can also educate ourselves by creating these images and labeling them, and now we become a better communicator of what we're seeing. And so when somebody says, yeah, I'm going to image the Veil Nebula tonight, you have a better grasp and understanding of kind of when you look up at the night sky where these things are located. So another thing that we can do too is a lot of us may just be into astrophotography, but some of us might be interested in astrophotography and may have friends that like history, like paleontology. I also do fossil hunting also as one of my hobbies. I do scuba diving. I do a lot of different things. And perhaps maybe you have a hard time communicating that to your friends. Well, one of the things that you can do too to make it fun is to add context. Remember back to that story I was talking about, you know, when maybe you have an idea of a picture that you want to take, like this image here at Chaco Canyon, New Mexico, you can have fun with it. You can create a story of how these people, these Puebloan people, use the sky to keep track of time, and using various petroglyphs and things like that that would be represented by things in the sky. So again, you know, you can also create an image by using, again, the night sky and its framework, and tell a story that may connect people. Again, this here is a great example of connecting geology with astronomy. You have the Milky Way, and then we have this area called Makoshika. This is a badlands located in Montana, and this area here has about 60 or so million years of history, from what we call the Tertiary period, which is what we're part of, down into the age of the dinosaurs. And this particular area here is just below that age of the dinosaurs. And again, we were talking about time with the Andromeda Galaxy earlier, that when people look at the Milky Way, they are looking back in time. And imagine what the galaxy in the sky looked like back then, when the time of the dinosaurs and things like that. So again, you know, by using your own images, by going out there, doing it yourself, taking your own images, you can come up with some really incredible, thought-provoking things that, you know, maybe you learn yourself. This is another thing that I'm very passionate about. I'm very passionate about light pollution and teaching about light pollution. And one of the things that you can create is the fact that here in Florida, we have a very large sea turtle nesting area. And one of the things I wanted to create was an image of the Milky Way and also a sea turtle. And we tried over and over and over and over and over again. One night we got the opportunity to image a sea turtle that just finished nesting and was heading back to sea. And we had the image of the Milky Way, and you can see on the bottom right there the cone of light. And so you can see the transition from darkness to light pollution, and of course red light, demonstrating the technique of using red light at night helps preserve night vision, does not affect the sea turtles at all. So that's another educational tool. So again, this can be taught in various different subjects. It's not just an astronomy subject. Actually, I have a friend of mine who teaches environmental science at the college. She uses this photo to talk about the nesting season in Florida, and how and also the national park rangers, which is actually, this is the Canaveral National Seashore. They use this photo to demonstrate the sea turtle nesting at night and things like that. So again, you can collaborate with all these other people in the world and be able to take your photographs and help them teach something that might inspire people. So I think that's just a very, very exciting thing when you can actually do something and take your own photograph and it ends up being something that may change something. And with this particular photo, this actually got the park interested in doing a dark sky designation for this spot. This was actually the photo I took. I got a chance to show that to the superintendent, and the superintendent was like, yeah, we need to do this. We need to fight to make this park protected. So you never know what your photograph may inspire somebody to change something that's going on. And that's where I kind of want to leave up my talk is, let's get some people involved in this. Your astrophotography has inspired you to take photos. You might be interested in sharing your photos and getting people excited. Well, one of the first ways to do that is, doing things like this. Maybe you have one of these, a cell phone holder. And the reason why I say the cell phone holder is to get somebody hooked on astrophotography is because it's easy and it's something that can be done on an outreach. And of course, you can actually get somebody to go, wow. People, when they see my astrophotographs, I'm sure when they see your astrophotographs, they are so scared because they see something and are like, there's no way I can do that. There is just no way I can do that. It's just too technical. There's too much work involved. But I tell people this, I'm like, hand me your smartphone or hand me your cell phone. We're going to hook it up to the telescope and you're going to take a picture of the moon. And this gentleman here, that's my friend Justin. He used to work with me at the planetarium. This was during the lunar eclipse back in 2019. And you can see here, the gentleman was like, there's no way you can take a picture of with my phone. And sure enough, he did it. And this was the image that he got. And this gentleman here has now become a pretty good astrophotographer in our astronomical society now. Just taking that one picture, that one okay moon picture has now made him now obsessed with, buying all this gear, doing all this stuff, getting into PixInsight and all these very, very intense, processes and things like that. Just that one picture is what got him into astrophotography. So again, introductory to astrophotography is really great by just getting out there, getting people excited. And he used that image to talk about, I saw the lunar eclipse, and that got more people excited about looking at that. He also took this picture. After that, he got a telescope. He got that cell phone adapter. He took a picture of the moon. For a while, he was taking all these different pictures of the moon. And then also eventually he graduated into doing things like this with a smartphone. So again, smartphones are, I would say probably within the next 10 years, we're going to be doing a lot more work on our smartphones than you think. So you never know. But again, just introducing people to that alone, and that will inspire them to get into astrophotography, is very, very powerful. So I want to end off with this here, and that is, a lot of us astrophotographers are very shy, as Alex mentioned in the beginning, but you'll be surprised just how connected you are with people towards the night sky, towards getting them inspired to look up, getting inspired to enjoying the beauty of our universe. And the last slide I have here is the sky is the limit. Really, it is, because we all start off as novices, and maybe some of you that are watching now have just begun your adventure into astrophotography, your road into astrophotography, and it's really just never ending. But we all started at the beginning, and of course, how can we inspire more people to get excited about astronomy? How can we get people excited about the universe? And we can do that through the power of our photographs. When we create these images, we can take people on adventures that they never could imagine. And by just, working on our way to communicate that better, on creating compositions, telling the story, trying to make these things better, we can be those people, that conduit to get people together to just appreciate this beautiful universe that we're in. And so anyway, so that's a little bit of what I wanted to talk about today. And hopefully this, as I said, it's a little bit different than what a lot of the other talks are on this channel, but I hope that this was a little insightful for you, or just, entertaining. And again, I want to thank you so much for your time here. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to reconnect my USB cable to my light here. So I'm going to quickly go, I'm going to turn off my video for just a hot second, and I'm going to reconnect that, and I'll be on in a second. But if there's any other questions or comments or anything like that, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Derek. And let's see, have we gotten through all the comments? I think there were a few comments about the stories that were told when we were doing the interactive thing. You can catch them over in the comment section, everybody. I don't see that there are any specific questions. I would like to attest to the fact that I've done lots of outreach in my life, and there have been until the COVID, the pandemic got to us. I used to have a line of 20 people behind my telescope taking pictures with my cell phone adapter, and I would just say, "Give me your phone." Take their picture, and they'd get all excited about it next, and it would just go on all night. It was really tiring doing that. They were so proud of having the pictures, and they were just sending them all over to everybody. So I can attest that, yes, we can do that. I can also attest to the fact that so many times somebody asks, "What's that a picture of?" And somebody starts going off into these deep, long explanations about it being hydrogen alpha with, 3 blends of 40% O2. And then, no, it's a pretty gas star field, and just leave it at that. I mean, yeah, you can go into it the more they express an interest in what you're doing and how you're saying it. Yeah, then go further. But mostly they just want to say, "Hey, dang, that's hot, man. That's pretty." So it looks like Derek's he's been lit up and unlit up. So let's go back to Derek. Derek?
Yeah, so unfortunately, my light is still giving me problems. I'm not sure what's going on here, but it's okay. I think you all can still see me a little bit darker, but yeah, no, that's exactly it. Is that that I love the mystery box thing. I love being able to give people just enough information about it, but that just intrigues them to ask more and more. We always feel compelled to have to give every little detail to somebody about our pictures. But in reality, let the engagement happen. Tell them something really interesting about it, but let them start asking questions, because humans do better learning when they are able to ask their own questions. They're more invested in that knowledge. So you're going to end up actually getting more appreciation out of them than just explaining it to them in full detail. So don't feel compelled to have to tell them the whole thing. But you also don't want to make it too dumbed down, because you also want to make it where you can at least go, well, okay, well, you mentioned this thing called light year. What does that mean? And you give them a little bit of technical jargon, but don't fill it with so much of that. So, but yeah, so you can be surprised. And again, using your own images, people love seeing what you do. And you could be, I know a lot of us there are some amazing astrophotographers that I'm like, wow, you need to show your stuff off. This is awesome. And they're kind of reluctant to do so. But when they do, people love it and people want to see more. And that's what's going to connect us. That's what's going to get us more. People always say that science right now is kind of, not under attack, but a lot of people feel scared of science. And if we can start reminding people that, you know, we just love this and we want to share it. People are going to become more interested. And of course, if we can be those people that can inspire science back into the general public, the better. So that's how I feel always when I
Well, you're a great ambassador for science, and you're a great ambassador for astroimaging. And I want to thank you for being here tonight to share your experiences with everybody. I want to invite everybody back next week on Labor Day weekend. Adam Block will be here. Adam has some new stuff to tell us about some developments at Fix Insight, and he's excited about telling us that. And it's always great to have Adam back. He's one of the more intelligent and one of the more expressive people we have in our hobby. I also want to encourage you to go hit the website for the workshops. If you just want to process some really good data, Eric takes really good data, process that and send it back to us and tell us what you got. And we'll put it together and maybe make a show out of it some point. Okay. I think that is pretty much wrapping it up for the week. Have we got all the comments and everything that we needed to get? Greg D was agreeing with me. And yeah, so I think we got everybody over there. That's it for tonight. Molly, you're in charge.
All righty. Have a good night, all. Thanks for coming.